Welcome back to State of the Stallions. This is actually the second episode that will be released today because for the second time ever, we have an emergency episode. We've got some huge breaking news. If you already listened to the episode I released earlier this morning, defensive coordinator John Chavis, we were wondering about his whereabouts. He hasn't been on the sideline for the last 2 weeks. The Stallions defense has struggled without him. And today we got official word from head coach Skip Holtz that he is no longer with the team. This is massive, and given the situation, I felt like I needed to record a quick episode just kind of explaining what's going on and talking about the changes that are around the team. If you listened to my episode this morning, if you haven't, go back and listen to it. But if you have, you know that Coach Chavis missed the game 2 weeks ago due to an illness, but he was back at practice the following week and was said to be recovering and healthy and doing well. Despite that fact, he was not at the game this past weekend against the Brahmas, the first game the Stallions have lost in over a year. And again, it was confirmed today that he will no longer be with the team moving forward. This is a massive loss for the Stallions. It's hard to overstate what Coach Chavis has meant to the team, not only this season, but really throughout the Stallions' tenure since coming back in 2022. He's been the defensive coordinator opposite Skip Holtz for the entirety of the Stallions' modern, history. This was his 44th season coaching football. He was not only the defensive coordinator, but also the linebackers coach. And Skip talked about this in some of the interviews he did, but these aren't large coaching staffs. They only had 4 defensive coaches. So without Chavis on the sideline the last 2 weeks, they were going with only 3 defensive coaches. And, having coached high school football and watched football at many levels, I mean, that's less than a lot of high schools, probably a lot of big middle schools in the South have on a game day. So only 3 defensive coaches on the sideline the past 2 weeks. And that lack of having Chavis as the defensive coordinator and as a fourth coach there, another set of eyes, I think has really made it difficult on the Stallions defense. If you don't know who Chavis is, you probably do if you follow the Stallions or follow SEC football, but he's a famous coach. He spent 25 seasons in the SEC as a defensive coordinator. He's a Broyles Award winner, which goes to the nation's top assistant coach in college football. This was his third consecutive season with the Stallions. He has 2 USFL championships. I think he led what was widely considered to be one of, if not the best defenses in the USFL in 2022. In 2023, they fell off a little bit, but they still had a very good defense. They were really good when it especially mattered in the red zone and in close games, and obviously was good enough to win another championship and go 10-2. And then this year they revamped the defense, and a lot of people thought that they had one of, if not the best defenses in the UFL this year. They got off to a hot start, didn't allow 20 points until week 6 of the season, led the league in sacks for the first several weeks of the season, still leading the league in takeaways, and so have been very successful under Chavis's tenure, but he is no longer with the team. I wanted to read what Coach Holtz had to say about this because I think, again, we don't have full clarity on exactly what the situation is. But again, like I said, what we do know is that he was ill. He had to go to the hospital, but he recovered. He returned to practice. He was feeling better. And then again, unexpectedly didn't show up for the game this past weekend and now has chosen to leave the team. And this is what Coach Holtz had to say about it. He said, quote, "He had a minor issue, went into the hospital, missed the game 2 weeks ago, came back out, was here for a couple days, and just felt like he needed to go home." He went on to say later in his interview with Jocks 94.5, a local sports talk radio station in Birmingham, he said, "John is healthy. John is in good spirits. Thoughts are with him constantly. There is nobody in this game that I have more respect for or love or think that he has done an unbelievable job, and I wish he was here. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out through some extenuating circumstances." So I do think it's worth mentioning. A lot of people I've seen have been attributing this to health, and I think health is certainly a factor. But at least from what Skip has said, it does not seem like it's a purely health-related thing. He didn't say Coach Chavis is extremely ill, he needed to go home to recover, he's, going to the hospital or anything like that. He actually said, quote, "John is healthy." And then later on, again, what he said was that he had to leave or that it didn't work out through some extenuating circumstances. Obviously, he didn't elaborate on what those circumstances were, but reading between the lines here, I think it's a situation where there's more going on than just a matter of his health. He is obviously getting up there in age, did have some health issues, again, did had to go to the hospital. But again, by all accounts, what I've been told and but what Skip said here, it sounds like he was recovering, he was healthy, he was expected to be back. But again, because of these extenuating circumstances that Skip mentioned, he has chosen that thought it would be best for him to step away from the team for the time being. So in his place, Corey Chamblin will take over as defensive coordinator. He was filling in as defensive coordinator already over the last 2 weeks, but now he will move into that role sort of officially. I've talked about Coach Chamblin on this show before. I've been very high on Coach Chamblin. I think he's a fantastic coach. I do think this is a very unfortunate situation for him to be stepping into, and I think he has his work cut out for him trying to take over for Coach Chavis. But if you don't know Coach Chamblin, he was our secondaries coach. This was actually his second season with the Stallions. He was with us in 2022, and then he left to go to the XFL and be with the Brahmas in 2023, came back to the Stallions in 2024. But he's from Birmingham. He actually grew up in Inslee, played high school football there. This is his 16th season coaching, so he's a little bit younger than Coach Chavis or Coach Holtz, but he's still experienced. He's coached with some of the other guys on our staff before as well, whether with the Stallions or elsewhere. He actually spent 5 seasons in the CFL as a head coach and actually won a Grey Cup as a head coach there. He also won 2 other Grey Cups as an assistant coach in the CFL. And the year that he won the Grey Cup, he was named the CFL Coach of the Year. So, I mean, he's not by any stretch of the imagination a slouch. I mean, he knows football. He's a great coach. He's a successful coach. He's been a head coach before. He certainly can be, I think, a great defensive coordinator at this level. Again, the Stallions have struggled under his tenure over the last 2 weeks. If you listen to my show this morning, again, if you haven't, go back and listen to it because I compared how the Stallions defense has fared with and without Chavis. Without Chavis, they've been giving up almost 100 more yards per game. They've given up about a touchdown more per game. The red zone percentage has skyrocketed from about 35 to 71%. So Chamblin, the first 2 weeks with him running the defense hasn't looked amazing, I will say. Now, again, granted, they were down a defensive coach. Like I said, they only had 3 on the sideline. Again, not a lot of maybe time to prepare, to adjust. So, I think we got to give Coach Chamblin a chance here. We don't really have a choice. But again, I think it's very unfortunate that these are the circumstances under which he will be taking over the defense. I think under different circumstances, I'd be very excited for Coach Chamblin to be this guy, to be in this role. But given the situation, it's hard to, get really excited about it. To fill in for Coach Chavis, obviously, again, Coach Chamblin has been promoted to defensive coordinator, but that still only leaves 3 defensive coaches on that side of the ball. So to help fill in, the Stallions have hired Anthony Blevens, who, again, I think it's very unfortunate that these are the circumstances under which he's joining the staff, but I do think it's a fantastic hire. Anthony Blevens, if you don't know the name, he's going to be hired as a defensive assistant coach for us to work alongside Chamblin. I don't know exactly what his role is going to be. Coach Holt said that Derek Riley, former UAB assistant coach who's been with us for 2 years now, is going to move from the secondary to coach the linebackers, which is what Chavis was doing. So my assumption is that Blevens is going to help with the secondary, so Chamblin can kind of still work with the secondary, but primarily be defensive coordinator. But Holtz didn't exactly say that. That's sort of me putting the pieces of the puzzle together. But regardless, Blevins will be a defensive assistant. Like Chamblin, he's actually also a guy from Birmingham. So he grew up in Pleasant Grove and played there. This will be his 21st season coaching. So again, he's also a little bit younger guy, but I think he's in his mid-40s, but still very experienced. Again, a Birmingham native. So he played cornerback at UAB. Actually played professional football first for the Birmingham Steel Dogs in the AF2. And then he played for the Birmingham Thunderbolts in the original XFL in 2001. So a lot of connections to Birmingham. He actually coached at UAB 1 year, and he spent 10 seasons as an NFL assistant coach. Most recently was the assistant special teams coach with the New York Giants. And so a lot of time in the NFL coaching defense, especially secondary, and also a lot of time coaching special teams. And if you don't know, you can see from the picture, but Coach Blevins was actually hired to be the head coach for the Vegas Vipers after this past season. So in the summer of 2023, Rod Woodson announced he was going to step away from the team. They did a search. They decided to hire Anthony Blevins. So he left his job with the New York Giants to go be the head coach of the Vegas Vipers, was there for a few months. Then the merger news broke. He had a job for about 5 or 6 months. Once the merger went through and the Vipers weren't a part of that, he actually found himself without a job. And so didn't coach football this past NFL season, could have been with the Giants, but left the team so he could be with the XFL and then ended up, without a job. He does actually live in Dallas, so it's an easy thing for him to just show up to practice for the Stallions there since they're based in Dallas currently. And I wasn't aware of this, but James Larson over at Pro Football's newsroom kind of, I don't know if this had been broke before or was out there before, but, he an article actually I wrote that he contributed to, added a little piece to at the end. Blevins was actually still on payroll for the UFL. So because of the merger and because Blevins sort of kind of got thrown under the bus by leaving his NFL job to come take an XFL job and then being put out of work, he was actually still getting paid by the UFL. I don't know how much. I don't know if it was the head coach salary, if it was, part of that or what the situation was, but he's in Dallas. He's on the UFL payroll already, and he's a Birmingham guy with connections to the city. So, it makes a ton of sense for him to join the staff. I think it's a rock solid hire. I think he'll be a huge addition for us. But again, it's hard to get very excited about given the circumstances, given Chavis leaving the team due to these, again, extenuating circumstances, whatever those are. It hasn't been made public. So excited to welcome Blevins to the team. I think he'll be a great addition to the staff. However, again, Coach Holtz talked about this in the interview. He's got basically a couple days, 5 days to learn the defense, learn the terminology, learn how they sort of do things, and try to be able to contribute. But he'll at least be an extra on the sidelines, an extra set of eyes for preparation. And I think he can be a great, contributor to this staff. Luckily, the Stallions sort of have I don't know what you want to call it, a tune-up game or almost sort of like a preseason, a pre-postseason type game in Week 10, playing Michigan at home in a game that has no bearing on the postseason, since we'll be playing Michigan at home again the following week. I think Blevins, he sort of has 2 weeks until it's really going to matter, really going to count for the long-term success of his team. So hopefully that gives him a little bit more of an on-ramp to kind of get integrated and learn the defense and help coach guys up. But overall, huge news out of the UFL today. Again, very unfortunate. Really hate this for Coach Chavis. Can't say enough good things about him and what he's meant to the Stallions in the city of Birmingham over these couple of years. I know people are devastated to lose him. He obviously wasn't the face of the team in the same way that Coach Holtz was, but I think everybody knew him both from his tenure as an SEC coordinator and then also as his time running this very successful Stallions defense. So it's really sad and heartbreaking for us to lose him again, especially in these kind of circumstances and under this way. Certainly be praying for him and thinking about him as he now sort of finishes out the season at home. And in the meantime, I think despite, again, how frustrating and unfortunate this is, we have to throw our support behind Coach Holtz, behind the team, behind Coach Chamblin, Coach Blevins, and, try to help these guys see if they can achieve their ultimate goal and go 1-0 for the next 3 weeks and bring another championship back to the city of Birmingham. Now we got, at least 2 guys on the staff that, not only are coaching for the city, but are from the city, played in the city, coached in the city before. So, hopefully those guys can deliver for us despite not having Chavis there. And hopefully this team can still achieve their goals. So a lot of drama in Birmingham. This is a level of adversity I don't think this team has ever faced before, losing a game and getting kind of manhandled like they did this past weekend, and then now having a massive coaching change with just a couple weeks to go in the year. One of the things about the Stallions and their sort of dynasty that they've created is that, they had consistency and longevity where other teams did not. Spring football is a space known for turnover, both in terms of coaches and in players. The Stallions have not had a lot of turnover on either front. They've had the same head coach and offensive coordinator for 3 years until Coach Chavis left, the same defensive coordinator for 3 years, the same general manager for 3 years. So this is the first kind of big transition that the Stallions have ever had, and it's happening in the middle of the season, a week before the playoffs. So huge adversity that the Stallions are going to have to respond to, and hopefully the players are able to move forward and again get their focus on the Michigan Panthers, who they'll play the next 2 weeks. Again, luckily we sort of have this kind of one sort of not super meaningful game to sort of get ready for when it's really going to count, but that's still not a lot of time. So we'll see what happens. Wanted to keep you all updated on the situation. I've been trying to stay on top of it as it's been developing. We'll continue to update you all as news comes out. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the Stallions. Again, this is Luke Miller. Thank you for always supporting my content, and I'll try to continue to bring you all the best news and updates regarding the Stallions. Giddy up.